All right. So yeah, thanks a lot, Henry, for coming on the channel. Why don't you introduce yourself so people know who you are?
Hi, everyone. So this is Henry, the founding partner for LNY Law Office and also Henry Associates. So basically, we are a law firm set up in 2015. So particularly with a focus on blockchain, particularly cryptocurrencies, of course. So we have been serving a lot of the exchanges in Hong Kong on overseas, and also like crypto funds, also OTC traders and all that. Regarding that, sometimes for the corporate finance issues and licensing issues, and sometimes even the dispute issues these days. So I know that you guys may be very interested in the recent development in Hong Kong regarding a new license for the virtual assets. Yeah,
that's right. A lot of people have been contacting us, and they're pretty concerned, and they want to file their comments with the SFC. So yeah, why don't you get us up to speed on what's going on there?
Okay, basically, maybe I just give a good overview, general overview of the developments of that the license. So basically, if you look at the development out there, right, back in 2015, the Hong Kong MA and SFC, after of course some discussions, right, they came up something about a new category called virtual commodities. Basically, what they said back then is that after some of the legal debate, they said Bitcoin is virtual commodity, which means this is not securities, which is not governed by the SFC under the Securities and Future Ordinance. So it's a new class of asset, as they confirm. So that, which is good thing, of course, good news for a lot of people. That means a lot of the crypto exchanges in Hong Kong or overseas exchanges targeting Hong Kong investors, right? They do not require a license in order to operate such a exchange in Hong Kong. And then, of course, if you guys remember, then as it's developed in 2018, then the SFC just came up with the sort of the concept framework paper where they say, SFC say, okay, now is 8 years since the creations of Bitcoin, right? They have to consider whether is it appropriate for them to regulate it. And then after a year of study, back in 2019 November, then they said, okay, this is something that they confirm they will regulate. But just that because, as I mentioned, Bitcoin is a virtual commodity, which is not security. So they just create something called the an opt-in approach. So what I mean is that even though legally speaking, all of these exchanges out there, you do not require a license to operate in Hong Kong. It is voluntary for you guys to come and apply for a license with the SFC, and SFC is prepared to grant a license, what they call the Type 1 and Type 7 license to you in order to operate. So it is entirely voluntary. And so far, as you understand, one of the exchange have made an announcement earlier this year to say they have already received approval in principle from the SFC to operate such an exchange. But I think that the latest development is the November this year, just a couple of weeks back, during the FinTech Week in Hong Kong, they made a further announcement is that instead of that, the opt-in approach adopted last year, they now say all of the virtual asset exchange would require a license, a new license, which is called the Virtual Asset Service Provider license. So it's no longer voluntary, it's now mandatory for all these exchanges to come and apply for a license, which is regulated under the AML. So it's the AML ordinance, but the power is basically still with the SFC. So I think that now is the consultation. Of course, it's a consultation stage. All of you would have a chance, if you want to make a submission before the end of January. But I think the general timeout, as we expect, is that they may and they will try to get it passed in the next couple of years.
Next couple of years, okay. So, so the actual time frame is about 2 years, right?
I would say because they do have to make a proposal to the Legislative Council, and that will still take some time to pass that and to put that into Gazette, right? So our expectation will be sometime, let's say, in 2022. Yeah.
2022. Okay.
Yeah, that will
Okay.
be.
Let's. Can you just kind of you know why the sudden change in the attitude? I mean, this is they were kind of like laissez-faire before, and now they've they've gotten very concerned.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe put it this way, just that on paper, uh, just that because on the consultation papers, of course, the explanation is that because they are under an obligation, under the FATF, because there's one of the members countries, and they would have to, of course, to regulate the virtual assets as part of the procedure in order to resolve the AML issues involving virtual assets, including Bitcoins, so that they're obliged to
Okay.
pass like that. Of course, some people will say the timing wise, of course, whether you have something to do with the new DCEP to be launched by China and all that, that's something, yeah.
I see. But it's I can understand their concern, but really, Bitcoin and these other cryptos, they're actually more trustworthy and solid than fiat. HSBC has gotten into a lot of trouble, and a lot of the other banks have gotten into a lot of trouble because,
Mm.
but Bitcoin itself, the software guards against fraud, and of course, I understand why the they're trying to go with all of the FATF, but it seems that the timing is a little bit panicky right now. Well,
Yeah. I'll say that I totally agree, because as we evolve in quite a bit of like legal disputes, right? No matter whether it's court proceedings or arbitrations involving Bitcoins and other virtual assets, right? And actually, it is as you mentioned, rightly pointed out, right? Is actually easier to trace those sort of virtual assets.
exactly,
Things on
exactly.
we can trace some of the blockchain actually is like somewhere. But I think a particular wallet, right? You can see the entire transfer, no matter where it is, right? Including some of the USDT. But I think the reality is quite difficult to enforce, and is quite difficult for at this point of time to identify who is the holder of those wallets, right? So even though we have the address and all that.
Right.
But practically speaking, it's hard to, if you do not know the identity, unless the amount involved is quite significant, right? Otherwise, it would not worth the effort in practical terms to track down the real identity. Unless, of course, if you now everyone as a requirement of obtaining the license, right? The VASP license, then all the exchanges will have to do the KYC and AML on all of these,
I see.
customers,
Yeah, I really kind of think they're really kind of late to the game as far as these laws and stuff like that. They're really late to the game because the decentralized exchanges are coming out, and frankly, it's software. The law on paper has nothing to do with, electronic digits. But what's their stance on that, and how? Why are they well, what are they going to do? Because really, like a decentralized exchange, it's just chain to chain exchanges.
Understand. So like for decentralized exchange and all that, right? Because as they claim, even in the consultation paper, they at this stage have no intentions to govern the peer-to-peer exchange. As long as the result of the exchange do not touch on the fiat and the cryptocurrencies and the virtual assets, then strictly speaking, that will not be within that sort of the new VARPS license. That's true. But I think in long term, right, my personal view, right, that may not right or wrong, then there's nothing truly called decentralized finance, in the sense that if they want to govern that, the government would have some way to define it and govern those decentralized finance projects. I know a lot of clients come to us to say, "Oh, I'm not Henry. Can you just confirm that we are not governed by any law or any jurisdiction because it's a decentralized finance, right?" But if we want whatever, even it's the foundations, right? Because ultimately we're human. We live in certain countries after all, right? And then so as long as you have a foundation or something, right, they will be able to, if they define wide enough, that they will be able to catch you.
I see. You know, a lot of our constituents, they're actually moving to Singapore, and you know, I talked about the Hexodus, you know, maybe last year, but are they concerned about that? Because frankly, you know, all of the exchanges can play regulation arbitrage and just leave tomorrow. You know.
Yeah, totally understand. Yeah, I think that will be more of a concern for you and me and community, right?
Okay.
So is something that, oh, they will move to Singapore or Switzerland or somewhere else, right? But that point of view is, I think, is partly because of the AML, and of course is a little bit more about the investor protections, right? Because after all, if any of these investors lose money or lose virtual assets, right, during the trading, then I mean, during I think that's a, I would say, a consequence, right, of the tsunami back in 2008 and 2009, because the regulators are really concerned about the complaints by regulator, complaints by the, of course, the investors, particularly the retail investors, more than anything else.
I see. Yeah, there were lots of fraudulent projects, and you know, lots of ICO scams and stuff like that. But are they actually going to go after those people? I mean, if they can't actually go after them, then, you know.
Yeah, I think we have even today, this year, we have like active for some of these, of course, like we have seen the SFC and the other regulators have like tried to do enforcement on the ICOs, right? But in practical terms, there are not that many ICOs out there in the market anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. Yeah.
Okay, but can they actually go after these fraudulent people?
And they have. I mean, if these of the fraudulent scams, right, actually take place in Hong Kong,
okay,
that, and then they will, if possible, then of course they would take enforcement actions, and we have seen that already. Well,
okay, so but they can't get the money back, can they?
I think that the question is whether they can catch those the mastermind behind those scams, right?
I see.
And whether the Hong Kong people, right?
Right.
As you know, right, they are not the founders and all that. They are not from Hong Kong or in Hong Kong, right?
I see. Yeah, because you know, most of the players here in Hong Kong, they're all A players. I mean, the guys that survived the last 3 years, they're all A players, and you know, they've conducted themselves and contacted the government, and you know, our community is pretty strong, and even I can't remember what the number is, but I'd say about $2 trillion goes through Hong Kong on these derivative platforms, and so that would be a huge blow to the community, I would say.
I would say for the derivative platforms, right, that two things, right, they, I think, as far as I know, they do not claim, even though they may have certain operations, right, but they do not claim to be based in Hong Kong.
I see.
Right?
Yeah, right.
One thing. The other thing is, if you're talking derivatives platforms, they will be coached by most of the time will be coached by the SFO, the Securities and Future Orders, anyway, with or without these new fast platforms. So there's a totally entirely different issues, I was saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I don't have a finance background, so can you explain more like the 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 players here? I mean, we've got derivatives and we've got exchanges, OTCs. Who's going to be affected here? We've also got, retail here popping up. We've got maybe over 100 ATMs.
Very good question is that, and a lot of people just confused as well, because about the existing, I would say the SFC type 1, type 7 license, as I just mentioned, and the new VARPS license, right? Because in particularly we have received inquiry of some of these exchanges, or even STO exchanges, to say, oh, whether I need to get a new license to get the new VARPS license. I think the question is like, and they say, oh, what's the impact on them? I think the answer is that if you are, let's say, a securities exchange, STO exchange, let's say, or derivatives exchange, in Hong Kong, strictly speaking, then you will need the SFC license anyway. So your will not be so much affected by the new license, because you will be caught by, if your product are caught by the as a securities, then you'll be required to obtain the SFC license anyway. The new VARPS license is only the cash, because they somehow, I would say, they consider it's a loophole, because as I mentioned, Bitcoin is just only considered as a virtual commodity, which is not money. Yeah, so which is something that there's a gap here, a regulatory gap, as they said, so that they need to create a new license called the VARPS license in a cash base, sort of like the virtual commodities, which are not considered as securities.
Okay. Yeah, then how does that affect retail? I mean, just we have those ATMs. That's not going to affect them at all.
For the ATMs, right? I think the good news is that at the initial stage, the government has made it clear that they would not, the new VARPS license will not cover the ATMs or what the crypto ATMs, right? But they leave it open whether they would have to cover it at the later stage. But regarding the retails, I think we come to a fairly interesting positions, right? Because for the VARPS license or any of these license is to protect investors. Right now, under the new regulatory framework of the VARPS license, they only allow the VARPS licensee to deal with professional investors only. So as you understand, there are quite a lot of retails in Hong Kong already have bought Bitcoin in the last 10 years, right? So there will be more in the next 2 years. Then I think they will come to a situation where this retail investor would not be able to trade on a licensed exchange. And they will be forced to deal with some unlicensed exchange, maybe overseas, or maybe some OTC platform which are unlicensed as well.
Okay.
So one of the things which, I would urge is, if you agree there's a significant number of retail investors who are holding, let's say, Bitcoins already in the market in Hong Kong, then shouldn't it be the case that VARPS license and the licensee should be able to deal with the retail, because that will give the protection to those who need to be protected. Because by definition, professional investors do not need so much protection than the retail.
Okay, so there's a few new exchanges here, and I've talked to them, and so let's say I want to buy Bitcoin at one of these exchanges. Are they going to have to get a license now?
If they are based in Hong Kong, or if they are promoting to the Hong Kong public, yes.
Okay, because there are some pretty powerful exchanges here, and
a lot of those, of course, some of these exchanges,
so
well, right.
Okay, and I'm not sure they're going to be very happy about that.
I think that's the reasons why I would say, yeah, I think the framework is a good thing. But the second question I think is a big thing is, of course, whether you would allow all these exchanges, including the overseas exchanges, the big exchanges, to obtain such a license in Hong Kong, because yeah, I think there's an uncertainty. Maybe you have to give, as a regulator, you have to give sufficient comfort to all these exchanges that as long as you meet certain criteria, you will be able to get the license here in Hong Kong.
Okay.
I think that's what I think. One thing that should be emphasis as well. I think the other thing is whether they could allow the fast licensee, the exchange, to deal with the retail for certain category, let's say spot trading of Bitcoin and Ethereum or USDT. So I think these are some of the most basic product without any margin financing or derivatives and all that, right?
Okay.
Yeah, just like buying gold. You may argue that, yeah. So if you allow the retail to buy gold, why shouldn't it be allowed to buy the digital gold?
Right. That's interesting. If they're going to be, if they're going to choose virtual assets for you, I don't think people are going to be very happy about that. Of course, I think we're going to have regulation arbitrage, and people will move to Singapore.
Yeah, if yeah, but at least, right, if you're considering from the angle of like investor protections, then I think the most traded one are still the most let's say BTC, ETH, or USDT.
Yeah.
If you're talking about some of the maybe the others of like ICO tokens or something like that, you can understand some of the concern from a regulator point of view.
Yeah, actually, I right before the China shut down ICOs, somebody told me that a high-level Communist Party member got burnt on one of those ICOs, and then after that they shut it all down. So, I don't know if that has any effect or any relevance, but I think that this, people ask for protection, but not all of us want protection.
Yes, I'm sure, like both of us, and I think, and as well as the community, right, have heard a lot of the rumors out there, yeah, including what you just mentioned, right, and it's really hard for us to comment. But after all, I would say, yeah, I think what we have seen, at least I have seen as a lawyer, right, is that a lot of these investors, yes, at this point of time, when you ask them before the investment, they will say, I don't need any investment, I will just do my own choice. But when they get burned, particularly when they lose money,
Yeah.
then sorry, I think that's a reality. But because when I was practicing like back in, yeah, I went through this of the tsunami and all these SFC complaints at that time. I think when we sort of interview all these sort of like yeah, some of the things, I think that the complaints are genuine, but at the same time, some of the complaints you were saying, oh, yes, I think you should have fully understood, particularly those, yeah, as we suspect, right? You should understood the nature of the product and all that, right? Accumulators and all that, which they say they have not looked at it in detail, or some of them they say I don't even understand English.
Right.
I think from a regulatory point of view, I can understand that point. Yeah, the investor will say a total different story. Yeah, when they get burned.
Yeah. Of course, there's something called like the 90-90-90 rule. One of my friends told me about, and it's 90% of the people will lose 90% of their funds in 90 days. So, frankly, people don't know what they're doing, and I can understand that, but for maybe the 10%, I don't know if they need to be holding hands with people.
True. Yeah, I think that's exactly. I think I'm not sure whether that's in reality the case, right? But if on assumption that's true, then that means at least 10%, so 90% will need to be protected, and then 10% will not need to be protected. But as a government, you cannot really truly distinguish the two groups. You can just only set the rules which applies to everyone.
I see. I
Then
see.
if that's the majority which need to be protected.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, from a retail point of view, I always ask, right? If let's say today's price for Bitcoin, how much, right? Is 19,000, right?
Yeah.
If you just say, if you launch the law and the new license today, and just say, I do not allow the retail to join in, does it mean that? But I think if you and I agree that the Bitcoin and all that will keep evolving, that means maybe 5 years down the line they will open up to the retail market.
Right.
But
Right.
by that time, the Bitcoin price may, who knows, right? Maybe already 100,000, right? Do you mean the retail can only join in at that point in time, which is too late in the game?
It is too late.
Yeah, that could be too late, right? And that could be the peak at that point of time, and lots of people suffer as well. So yeah, so I think it comes down to a very good question. What's the right point of time to open up this market to the retail? And it's a difficult one. I agree.
Yeah. Well, I I think their change in position is a little bit late in the game, and even if they come 2 years, uh, actually pass something in 2 years, I think we're going to see a totally different world, and a lot of these laws just will be a little bit too old for the times. Um, but yeah, what do you think about that? 2 years?
You mean too late or too early?
Well, we're talking about relevance. Are they going to still be relevant at that time?
No, I would say, I think ultimately, if we come to the mainstream, if we agree that the virtual assets and all this will come into mainstream, then we are still in a centralized world. Then there's no doubt that there will be some rules and regulations come into place.
Yeah.
But what sort of rules is appropriate? That's the question.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it's more like capital controls coming from Beijing, possibly leaks. Anytime they say AML, KYC, it's always a vague term, and they don't want money leaving. They don't want capital flight.
Yeah, that could be true. That could be true. I mean, I think this policy is a combination of everything. Okay. You will have to pinpoint one or two.
Right. Of course.
Only reasons to launch certain policies, right? But I think it have
And actually, the PBOC, they filed the patent. I guess it's 2018 or something, but they have their own chain, and it can track all the transactions. And that's their patent, to track things.
Yeah, I think we both of us would agree, right? So blockchain is actually easier to track than anything else. So I think there's no debate on this.
Yeah.
But just that, I think question back to is, presumably all these sort of service provider exchanges and all the, just like securities, right? On day one, not much. I mean, but when this market developed, then of course we have sort of what we call the SFC license, the broker dealer license, and all these credit rating license, right? Or SM. I think the same. I mean, the same would develop for
I see.
the SS market.
I see. So it's pretty interesting that these times now. Of course, we just had Bitcoin. The price went up so fast and hard, and now we have other people starting to come in, like JP Morgan. Of course, they reversed their position, and they're all saying for the longest time, oh, it's not real, it's not real, it's not real money. Now they're going in, but it seems like it's almost like, you know, all of the central banks want to control the money system, and of course this is a threat to their system. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm not surprised, right? It's just that, JPM or any other sort of like financial institutions or regulators change the positions, right?
Right.
I've seen that already, not just once, right, but many times.
Right.
But now,
Right.
as you see, I think it's a coincidence as well because of this COVID thing as well, right? And there's more, of course, the monetary policies, right? Just printing more money this year, particularly, right? Which is,
Exactly.
I think something
Exactly.
not. I think that's something not being expected even back in 2019, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
of course, that
actually,
price of Bitcoin is more, right? We would expect, right? You and I may expect like the price will go back up to 20,000s, right? But not
right.
as
Well, actually, I was at an MBA class and I was giving a guest lecture, but I was talking about the US dollar collapsing in June. And so I gave that talk in November 2019, June 20th. Of course, that's when the pandemic started to hit. Of course, now we're seeing all the economies contract and the printing going crazy and stuff like that. So
and still keep going on. Yeah.
Well, it's not going to be getting better in the next 2 years.
Yeah, that's the reasons why I think the true value of Bitcoin, right? Yeah. That's the sort of the trend.
Yeah. So as far as like retail goes, and just the small guys, and the people in Hong Kong, like we'll still be able to trade, let's say, on FTX or something like that. They're Hong Kong based. We'll be able to trade up until about 2 years until they kind of try to write a good paper about that or something.
Yeah, just one thing, right? I do want to comment on any particular, of course, like platform operator or exchange, right?
Okay.
Just generally speaking, at least as far as until the law is established, right now, Bitcoin is still a virtual asset.
Okay.
And basically, which is not governed by the Securities and Futures Ordinance. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was very interesting. So,
but that does not, of course, cover all these of other products, right?
Okay.
Bitcoin, only.
You're talking about other crypto assets.
Or some of
cryptocurrencies.
I would say other products, right? Because not just because I think a lot of people just keep asking, or if I say you have to, a lot of these, even for tokens, right? Even for other products, you have to look at the true nature of it, and it require deep, I would say, legal analysis of each thing. Even something as simple as a stable coin. Some of the question, right? Or other stable coin are they virtual commodities or securities, right? I just say stable coin is just only a name and just to refer to a particular category. But yeah, you have to look at the true nature of each token before you can come to conclusions.
Mm-hmm. So, that I've been interested in doing healthcare blockchains and to start up in Hong Kong. And there's a bunch of other people starting up, not necessarily exchanges, right? So what would you say the environment would be in the next 2 years then? Would we have to worry about leaving?
Okay, no. So if you are talking about blockchain, right, without any sort of the issuance of the tokens, and particularly for fundraising purposes, then I would say it's just purely a technology company, which is, I think, quite welcome in Hong Kong. But I think only the situation is just getting more complicated if you start issuing tokens as part of and start doing some fundraisings.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you can't print your own money. That's what you're saying?
I would say you have to be very cautious and careful and should seek legal advice before you start issuing tokens in Hong Kong.
Okay. So let's say, you know, my project is the healthcare blockchain. It's on Hyperledger, and you know that doesn't have a token. But if I want to talk to, let's say, the healthcare insurance companies and have some type of payment gateway for the payers, patients, and other stakeholders, how am I going to be able to do that here in Hong Kong, or do I need to think about going to Singapore?
No, I think like whether it's Hong Kong and Singapore, right? I think you have to look at yes, for example, even if you go to Singapore, rather, of course, they have the payment license and all that, right? But and then whether it's the right one for you guys and all that, I think really depends on your business model. And the same, based on your question, right? Your main concern is whether you will be legally permissible to do what you want, right? Particularly, let's say the payment service, it really depends on the actual business model.
I see. So let's just say, for example, I want to do a Kickstarter to do this healthcare blockchain, because you know you want to have your medical records for your lifetime. But if I want to do a Kickstarter and a fundraise, I can't do that here.
No, but are you talking about, you are not doing an equity, you are not talking about that, you're just talking about a product, right? So they how to just like, yeah. So it's not wars and nothing, right? Basically, you are just buying a product from you.
I see. So
if that's right.
So yeah, because you know the insurtech and fintech, these guys, RegTech and stuff like that, you know, especially like insurance, like these blockchains can be applied there. But that means like somebody like me, if I want to raise my own funds to start this project, you know, I'm going to have to, you know, check all the, you know, boxes or something.
Yeah, I would say it really depends on what you're selling, right? For your, as you said, right, for the fundraising exercise. But most of the time that we have seen, including insurance tech, RegTech, or fintech, right? Still the most common way is still going through the traditional sort of private placement for like Series A, B, and so on.
I see. So that's interesting. You know, I have watched this space in Hong Kong since about 2014, 2015. Of course, now we've got so many things happening right now. I think that Hong Kong is almost is almost in trouble though, because now they're closing all the borders and they're kind of shutting down the businesses. I'm not sure this is really going to help the ecosystem in Hong Kong. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think in short term, right? I think yes, it's harder to travel. It's harder to do business right now because but I think it's a global thing. Hopefully, I think all of us would wish that the border will be reopened. But I think, of course, health, right, is more important than anything else, right? At this point.
Well, well, yeah, of course, health is important. Actually, is one of the main reasons why I went into healthcare after 2001, because you know just about everything fell apart in New York after that. So,
but
I think we're having a repeat.
Is that so? I would say, we still some very some the market is quite active, particularly for the past 2 months. I think for some of the fundraising, for some of the other activities, right?
Okay, okay. So there are like STO projects still here?
Yeah, I think particularly, partly due to the COVID thing. So they're now thinking more about, people are more innovative, I think, and this year, and start to think more about the STO, because for the last 2 years, what we have seen is that when the general market is still okay, and at the same time, STO was quite new, so that like a lot of people thought about it, but didn't sort of implement it. But I think particularly for this year, people start to say, I think after 2 years, more than 2 years of debate, now the process and all that, and of the STO is more clear. So that
Okay.
I think a lot more people are willing to try out STO as an alternative method.
I see. Yeah. No,
And
yeah,
the whole, and of course, the SFC will grant their first STO license, formally.
okay. That's okay, right.
And other good indications that,
Okay. That all sounds good. I mean, the regulation, of course, they want to kind of like micromanage that, but also, you know, with all of these other like the NSL laws, and you know, this kind of like you know, the happenings in Hong Kong, which are very, you know, to me, it's politically unstable. How is Hong Kong going to guarantee these companies that this is that they'll be able to have a firm foundation?
I mean, I think on your questions, right? As long as the companies do not touch on the NSL law, right? So it should be fairly safe. I mean, a lot of clients ask this sort of a similar question as well. But I would say, but I think in most of the situations, like they are not, too relevant to you guys, because you're of the target, I would say, of the NSL law, right?
I see.
Yeah.
But you know, if we hear this stuff about DCEP, and then and of course they're tracking. What about like privacy and stuff like that? What if you don't want the DCEP? What if you want a privacy coin then? Are we going to be able to, like in healthcare records, the most important thing that blockchain can do for a person is to keep their information private. You don't want your medical record, you know, public, right?
Yeah, I totally agree, right? So for healthcare, of course, thing, right? Then of course, we come to a very interesting debate: is to what extent you should be able to keep your wealth private as well, right?
That's right.
So, for most of people, right? I'm sure that the source of their income or their wealth is clean. Then the question is, why should we be so concerned, right? We just talk about that's the government. But of course, I can sort of understand, right, why some of the people may get concerned about the disclosure of the wealth and all that, right, maybe for other reasons.
Right.
Yeah, but that's not something. Strictly speaking, then the question, why should you allow tax planning, right? A lot of you, if strictly speaking, from a legal point of view, you should be paying tax.
Right.
In accordance to your to the tax law.
Right. Well, blockchain could probably take care of that, but people don't want to pay taxes anyway.
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? So exactly. So if you say blockchain will actually force people or some of the people to pay tax or pay whatever they should have paid at the very beginning, is it a good thing or bad thing? Is it right thing or wrong thing? Then then
Right.
yeah.
Right. I mean, of course, in the,
like no is another question, right? Of course.
right. It's well, in the U.S., it's no taxation without representation, right? So, of course,
Yeah,
that,
I
you
think
know,
each jurisdiction is slightly different, but on a yeah.
yeah. So, this is very, very precarious times, I think. Is there anything else that um, that you can comment on, maybe like about this um, maybe taxation, money transmission laws, anti-AML, anything else, border restrictions or anything else that you'd like to talk about, maybe estate planning or something?
No, I would say, right, what I would urge is like, let's take one step at a time, because yeah, first of all, because we have not really come to a stage where we have to concern. I think that will come in a couple of years when we'll start discussing about the estate law, tax law, and all that after the FAST license and all that.
Okay.
And so, more importantly, I would say, if anyone is getting concerned on the virtual asset side, there will be a really good time to make a submissions before the end of January, particularly how to shape this, because I think this piece of law is very important, and the retail particularly, of course, whether you want to get more protected, less protected, or whether you want to deal with the exchange in Hong Kong. If you do, then that's very important for you guys to say, oh, yeah, the government or regulators, please do allow us to trade with that. Because once you trade that, then you start to think about, oh, what the tax law should be and the estate planning should be, right? Otherwise, you will not even have access, yeah, in Hong Kong. Then not much fun to talk about, yeah.
Yeah. So so who do we need to talk to? I mean, there's this thing about who do we need to contact at the SFC? Because we want our voice to be heard.
Yeah, I would say, of course, this time the consultation is issued by the FSTB, right? The Service and Treasury Bureau, and of course, that's the sort of the venue that you should go to this time. But of course, I was saying, like, let's say Beacon Association or some of the other association involving, yeah, if you're equally concerned with this, then I think as a group, in the name of the associations, you should be able to contact the regulators, the SFC as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Is there anything else you want to cover? I know that you basically your group, you wrote part of this book, the blockchain and cryptocurrency regulations.
So I think we have contributed to the Hong Kong chapter for this book, and you can download that from the website. And we are, yeah, and I'm happy. I'm more than happy to send you a copy of that. So just send me an email, hyu@lylawoffice.com, and hopefully you can. And if you have any suggestions, recommendation, because we do plan to make a submission to the government, and if you have any feedback on that, feel free to let me know, and we're happy to include your comments, because we're doing this on behalf of our firm and on behalf of some of the associations as well.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent. Yeah, because there was some concern about Article 112 or something. The basically talking about the free flow of capital. So is that going to?
Then of course you will come to as a lawyer, you will come to a debate. What is capital, right? Is virtual assets.
Okay.
Capital, right? But after I think you have seen the recent development and all that, right? So I would say you should not be too dragged on the article, on the wording of this, right?
Okay.
You should look at the spirit of it behind this. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. You know, yeah, there's always this gray area. It's not like computer logic where it's a 1 or a 0. There's always some kind of like gray in between. It can be defined, or, you know, it can be, you know, kind of manipulated against, you know, certain people or groups, you know. So we definitely need to have this discussion and this debate. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, you said, but one of the thing, right? I would say is when you look at this of law and all that, right? Are you guys as reading, particularly reading is just from the common law aspect, or are you reading from the civil law aspect, right? You may come to a totally different results. None of them is right or wrong, but just we are looking at from from a different angle.
Mhm.
Right.
Excellent. Yeah, so you can get your book at your website. And what was that?
Yeah, you can get a copy of the Hong Kong chapter from our website, and I can send you a copy if you send me an email. I just mentioned, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, yeah. So yeah. So hey, Brian, do you have any questions? Hold on a second. Hey, Brian. Oh. All right. Well, anyway, yeah, thanks a lot, Henry.
Okay.
Is there anything else we need to know then?
I think that's good for now, but just like, just look at the Bitcoin price, right? And let's see how, you would end by the end of this year, right? Whether you go
Okay.
outside 20,000
Oh, yeah.
will be
Yeah,
a Christmas present for all of you.
of course. Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much, Henry.
No problem. My
All
pleasure.
right. We'll catch up later. All right. Bye. Okay. So I'll just hold on a second. I'll just stop the recording.